Welcome, friends. This is Hurricane Hub Live. I'm Chief Meteorologist Tim Pandages. It is Thursday, August the 13th. It's hard to believe that we're about roughly 2.5 weeks away from being at the halfway point of the 2026 Atlantic hurricane season. So far, been rather quiet. 3 named storms so far out in the basin, but we've got activity tonight in both basins, actually getting quite active in the Pacific, so we'll get right to it. We had a crystal ball yesterday that developed around 11 a.m., and then today it's gone. It was a flash in the pan. Second shortest lived system of the season. Of course, we had Arthur. That was our first named storm that was around for less than 12 hours. This one a tad bit longer than that, but it was in the North Atlantic, affected nobody. Dolly could come soon, though, in the Atlantic basin. We've got 2 candidates out there, 2 areas of interest, and we're actually getting a pretty impressive African easterly wave train coming off the coast of Africa, so that's a sign that we're getting into more climatologically favorable environmental conditions for storms to start to develop out there, but there are a lot of barriers to that development. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. Now, out in the Pacific, 2 named storms right now. In fact, one is in the Central Pacific, Lala, and Hernan, which is in the Eastern Pacific. So we've got 2 storms out there, one expected to now become a hurricane and possibly threaten Hawaii this weekend. So here's a look at the tropical basin, the Atlantic basin, and here's the wave train I'm talking about. We've got 1, Invest 92L, 2, Invest 94L, and then another pretty robust wave just coming off the coast of Africa that we may get outlooked as another area of interest here in the next 12 hours or so. And then off in the north, there it is, flash in the pan. That's what's left of Cristobal, now a post-tropical cyclone, if you can even call it that. There's not much even left on satellite imagery to even detail right now. As we zoom in on it, it's hard to kind of pinpoint where it actually may be. But that's what's left of it, moving off to the north and west of the Azores here in the North Atlantic. Not a problem for anybody. Now, we'll start off well to the east. This is our Invest 94L investigative area, 94, 90 to 99. We recycle the numbers, and L depicts that it is in the Atlantic basin. No change here on the development odds, pretty low in the short term, next 48 hours, 30% chance. Does go up to moderate odds, 50-50 odds, within the next 7 days as it continues on a westerly track. Farther to the west now, this was the healthiest looking wave 24 hours ago. It was at 80% odds of becoming the next named storm, which would be Dolly. Today, those probabilities have been cut in half. And as we look at it on satellite imagery here in just a second, you will see it has been destroyed pretty much by increasing wind shear as it builds off to the west. But next name up on the list would be Dolly, and then potentially Edouard, Faye, and Gonzalo. Here's how it looks. Invest 92L on satellite imagery. We're looking at the infrared that tells us the temperature of the cloud tops. We can kind of point out where the strongest of the convection is. This is where, depicted by satellites, would be the center of this Invest area. Again, it's not a closed center of circulation. It's not a closed low. It's just a kind of a guess by satellite imagery. We've got some convection here well off to the west of where that center may be. And notice it's really looking rough. It's looking distorted. It's getting stretched. It's getting eaten up here by some wind shear that's coming in from the west-southwest and kind of degrading it as it tries to build on into it. And it's just going to get worse. So I think the likelihood of this developing is dropping by the hour. Better odds look likely for the one off towards the east there of Invest 94L. But here's what the spaghetti plots do with it. Again, it's whatever the energy is going to do here. It's not likely going to be a named system as it moves into the Caribbean because the wind shear just gets stronger from here. And if it's not a strong system to kind of ward itself off of the shear, it likely will not survive. But here's what the plot showed, pretty much on a due west trajectory here across the Windward Islands. May bring some gusty showers there. They could use the rain in the Caribbean. But that'll be likely about it. Farther to the east now, here's a look on satellite imagery. Same sort of imagery here, infrared. 94L, not all that impressive on the infrared. A little better looking here on the visible, though. We can certainly see that pivot in the atmosphere here as it's trying to get itself organized. Again, it's farther to the east, away from that wind shear, so it's got a little bit longer of a development window here, probably over the next 48 hours to maybe 72 hours, and maybe trying to get its act together. But again, here off towards the east, there's another wave coming in off the coast of Africa. Now, take a look here on visible satellite. It is bookended by these tropical waves. Off to the west here, what's left of 92L, and that's going to be imparting a little bit of some wind shear on it as well. So we'll see if that gets its act together. Again, not terribly high odds of that developing, 50-50 as of the current time. But the spaghetti plots on this, kind of more of a divergence. as it gets farther out in time here, pretty much a west-northwest trend over the next 3 days. And then from there, it gets a little bit more uncertain as it could drift farther to the north, northwest, and turn north of the islands if it does try to get developed, or maybe moves up and over the Caribbean islands, Windward and Leeward Islands here by, I don't know, maybe the middle to end of next week. But large spread in model consensus here. And again, it's going to be running in to that wind shear. Both of these areas of interest are well off from any potential threat to the U.S., and it doesn't look likely on even the longest of the range models. We're between 9 and, say, 12 days away if it was to be a threat. And again, it's not. Tropical travel time here is about a week and a half out if it was to be any issue. But there's a lot of wind shear. We've almost got two barriers in place here, two walls of wind shear. One here that's pretty significant. Both of those will be building into that, so it's going to have to get past that. If it does get past that, it's got more wind shear here off in the southwest Atlantic that'll create more issues for it trying to get its act together. And that's a symptom of the growing, strengthening El Nino. That's out in the eastern Pacific. That's imparting the wind shear, the rising motion in the eastern Pacific, sinking motion here in the Caribbean and portions of the Atlantic main development region there. So that's what we're going to be watching, excuse me, as we go through the next couple of days. That wind shear isn't going to be getting any weaker. Saharan dust, this is the only favorable thing. It's not really a big issue anymore. Concentrations, the volume of the dust is really going down. We're not seeing huge plumes getting ejected off the coast of Africa and moving across the Atlantic basin. Really just not much dust at all. So becoming a little more favorable overall. But again, it's the wind shear that's going to be the big problem. And that wind shear can help to pull in some of that dry mid-level air, some of that dust into some of these developing systems. No real lack of any fuel. All ocean temperatures are above the normal for this time of the year. The anomalies are there. Subtropics are very warm. Main development regions starting to see some pockets of well above normal temperatures, especially farther in the eastern portions of the MDR. Caribbean has some pockets of cooler anomalies, especially closer to the coast of Colombia and Venezuela, and then off into the Caribbean, Western Caribbean and the Gulf, all plenty warm. The exception, right, of the coastal waters of the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, but plenty of warm water, plenty of fuel there. And then look at the eastern Pacific. It is just cooking. Bathwater, one reason why we've seen such an increase in activity there. We're at 8 named storms so far in the eastern Pacific, and this growing El Nino is going to be a growing problem for global weather patterns, really, as we get into the later part of this hurricane season. And it doesn't only impact the hurricane season, it will be impacting winter weather patterns globally going forward. So that's the latest on the Atlantic Basin. We've got 2 storms to discuss in the eastern Pacific and central Pacific when I see you again after a quick break. Welcome back to Hurricane Hub Live. Let's head over to the Pacific. We've got two named storms right now, one in the central Pacific basin, which is Tropical Storm Lala right now, and still right on the cusp of the basin change there is going to be in the eastern Pacific, and this is Tropical Storm Hernan. And then well off towards the east there, looks like there's another area of interest that's tagged closer to the Pacific coast of Mexico. Let's start off with Tropical Storm Lala, where it's strengthening. We're up to 50-mile-per-hour winds now as of the 8 p.m. advisory, with gusts up to 60. And it's not all that far away from Hawaii, and it is a growing threat for the Hawaiian Islands as we get into this upcoming weekend. It is now expected to become a hurricane. Here's how it looks on visible satellite imagery. It is definitely looking healthier. We're seeing convection starting to wrap all the way around that center there, and not so much wind shear anymore like we were seeing earlier. There's definitely some more stable air, drier air off to the north that I'll show you here as we flip things over to water vapor satellite. We'll see if it does pop on up here, but there is plenty of dry air situated just to the north there. And if we do get some of that drier air getting pulled in, ingested into the overall circulation, we'd likely see it choke off and plateau on its intensification. There we go. Here's what it looks like. Look at the rust colors here. That is dry air in the mid-levels, and it is right borderline there. For now, it's doing a good job of kind of holding it all off right now, with its circulation being quite good. And as it continues to strengthen, we'll see if that holds or not. But plenty of dry air up and over Hawaii, basically in its entire movement where it's going. So the Central Pacific, as we talked about last night, has its own list, and there are 4 lists, and it doesn't go in the same kind of order that we go with the Eastern Pacific or the Atlantic. So Lala right now is the first name for the 2026 season. All of these names were from 2025, and how it works is they're the 4 lists. The names are used one after another, regardless of what season you're in. It's one after another. When the bottom of one list is reached, the next name is the top of the next list. So we just rotate through those 4. And here's how it looks on the spaghetti plots. We've got it moving on off towards the west, northwest. And notice there was a little bit of a trend or a jog south. Most of the models now drawing a consensus of a track south of the Hawaiian Islands. Yesterday it was right over, so hopefully we see that track continue to get suppressed farther to the south, and maybe just a glancing blow to the Hawaiian Islands, because now it is expected to be a little bit stronger, now up to a Category 1 hurricane at its strongest as it's approaching the Big Island of Hawaii right around Saturday afternoon, with peak winds. As of right now, it could be stronger. We could see an overperformance here of 75 miles per hour, Category 1 storm, and then shooting off to the north and west and re-strengthening, actually, and getting even stronger well out into the Central Pacific here, away from any land. How do the operational models see things? Well, the GFS and the Euro pretty much on target here. Good consensus, good agreement, showing a track, again, just to the south, but grazing the Big Island there. A little hard to get a landfalling system in Hawaii with the island chain being so small, but it does happen. A little more rare. It's a little bit more common to get glancing blows or storms moving within a certain mileage of the Big Island, and I'll show you that here. Here's Hawaii's hurricane history. Last hurricane landfall was Iniki back in 1992. It was a Cat 4. Last tropical storm landfall was Olivia back in 2018. Now, when we widen this out to say storms the center passing within 100 miles or so of Honolulu, the count goes way up. Now, the last one that come within 100 miles was just last year, and that was Kiko. It was a tropical storm in 2025. And of course, we just did knock off Hernan, which is the next name on the list there. That is tropical storm number 8, named storm number 8. And we'll see if it does get a little bit stronger from here, but unlikely to do so, because it is seeing a good amount of wind shear getting imparted on it by Lala here, well off towards the west, and it's throwing some wind shear in that direction. Doesn't look all that great. On satellite imagery, you can see the low-level circulation kind of exposed there of Hernan, with all the convection getting displaced off to the east and northeast of that center. Right now, though, maintaining a wind speed of 45 miles an hour, low-grade tropical storm, and that looks to be about it as it drifts on off towards the west and southwest and gradually weakens into this weekend. All the energy is going to be used for Lala, heading as a hurricane towards Hawaii. So our updated scorecard now, we're at 3 named storms in the Atlantic Basin. Of course, Arthur, Bertha, and we just had Cristobal. We're up to 8 now in the East Pac, 2 hurricanes and 1 major. We'll be right back after a quick break. All right, welcome back to Hurricane Hub Live. Tonight we've got a very special guest with us. Rachel Penton-Gauthier is a fellow meteorologist, and she's a science content producer at the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety. Rachel, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
Let's talk about storms, hurricanes in general. Now, let's start off before the storm. What do you think is the biggest mistake that homeowners make before hurricane season even begins?
I think the biggest mistake that homeowners make is actually not doing anything, not doing that prep ahead of the season, and instead waiting until there's a storm, in the Atlantic or in the Gulf before they start making their prep. So really, the key is starting from small prep to medium prep, all the way up to those higher end items. Start thinking about it before hurricane season starts. Of course, we're well into hurricane season now, headed towards that peak. So if you haven't done your prep yet, get out there and take care of it now.
And sometimes cost is something that holds people back from making those preparations. What are some relatively inexpensive upgrades that significantly improve a home's ability to withstand a storm?
Yeah, so here at IBHS, we study all parts of homes, from residential buildings all the way up to commercial buildings as well. And our scientific research that we do here at IBHS shows that really the roof is the home's first line of defense. So while we recommend bigger upgrades like getting a fortified roof, even small things that really don't cost anything, like cleaning out your gutters, those are really small kind of maintenance things that can go a long way into making sure your roof is performing as it should. So clean out all that tree debris, any leaves and pine straw, things like that left over from earlier in the year, and make sure that the water that hits your roof can flow freely away from your roof and drain as it should off of your roof. So really simple things like that. Also, just taking a walk around your house, checking for kind of dying or dead limbs, anything that could be kind of hanging precariously over your house. Make sure you trim those back as well. Again, both of those factors going into keeping that roof protected during hurricane season.
All right, so that covers homeowners. Is there anything that renters should do to make sure that their residence is going to be properly prepared?
Well, as a renter, one of the best things you can do, and this goes for homeowners as well, but renters, of course, making sure you have a renter's insurance plan, and whether you rent or you own, you need to make sure that you document all of your belongings. That's a really key part. In the event that you do sustain damage from a hurricane or severe weather, you need to have an inventory of all the items in your house. So walk through every room in your home or your apartment, take photos, take videos, get all of those items on camera. If you have receipts, that's helpful as well. And you really want to create a thorough home inventory and make sure it's saved in a safe place like the cloud. So if you do have to file an insurance claim, you'll have that handy and you can very quickly and easily start working on your insurance claim because if you have that home inventory.
That's really great advice. Are there any common mistakes that folks make when they're trying to make that claim, God forbid, that they have some damage to the residence?
Well, just a few key things to keep in mind. Documenting is going to be your friend, whether you're documenting your belongings that are in your house or damage that your house has sustained. So in the event that you do experience damage, same situation. Take photos, take videos. Don't start repairing or cleaning anything up until you've actually been able to document the damage that has occurred. And then the second thing you want to do, and it's the homeowner's responsibility, is to make sure that damage to your home doesn't lead to further damage. A great example would be if you have shingles that fly off your roof and you have water entry into your home, you got to get somebody out there as soon as possible, get a tarp on that house, because you don't want that water intrusion to lead to further damage inside your home as well. So just kind of doing what you can to stop that damage where it's at and not do anything that would lead to additional damage on your home.
Rachel, I'd love for you to take a moment to talk a little bit about the research that you do over at IBHS, where you guys recreate severe weather. What have those experiments revealed that people might not have expected?
Yeah, that's a great question. Here at IBHS, we study wind-driven rain, just like you see in hurricanes, hail, and wildfire. And it doesn't really matter what type of weather hazard you're facing. As we all know, it can do extensive damage to your home, and it's not necessarily those big Category 5 storms that do the most damage. It's really winds starting at around 70 to 80 miles per hour. Those winds are low enough to start, or high enough to start causing shingles to fly off of your house. I think the biggest misconception is that it has to be this high-end storm. The lower-end storms, they bring plenty of rain, they bring enough wind to damage your home, and it's really those small components on your home that can lead to some of the largest damage. Your garage door, for example, is another one that is maybe less commonly thought of. It's sustaining damage during a hurricane to your garage door can actually lead to additional roof and structural damage.
You know, that's interesting you bring up the garage doors. We had a garage door expert on a previous episode, and I tell you what, I learned everything I never thought I needed to know about garage doors and how that could be the failure point in a storm for your home. But that's great advice there. Now, that research that you've done at IBHS certainly has led to innovations in home construction. Can you highlight a few of those and how they've impacted the industry?
Yeah, well, our premier program is called the Fortified Program. And again, we're a nonprofit, so we're not selling anything, but we're conducting all this research. We're putting the findings from those science experiments into technical standards. And those technical standards are part of the Fortified Program that can be adopted in more than 30 states across the country. So that is all of our science put into a construction method for building a stronger home. So that's going to be that stronger roof. It's going to contain things like fortifying that garage door, getting that wind-rated garage door. So all that science is kind of wrapped up into this kind of package that we're handing to people. So all you have to do to get a fortified roof, find a contractor who knows the standard, who is willing to build to that standard, and you can use all that science to upgrade your home and upgrade your roof. And oftentimes insurance discounts are available as well as grant programs.
All right, Rachel, last up here, we've got a rapid fire segment here. Do or don't. Ready?
Yes.
Getting a backup generator. Do or don't?
Do, but follow the guidelines in your book.
All right, sandbags near home entrances.
Do.
Taping your windows.
That is an urban myth. That is not going to do anything. You want impact-resistant windows.
Leaving patio furniture outside.
Don't. Those can become flying projectiles, and again, once the wind enters your home, that can lead to roof and structural damage.
And lastly, documenting storm damage.
Yeah, definitely do that one and be thorough about it for sure.
Awesome. Rachel, we really appreciate your time tonight. Rachel Penton-Gauthier from IBHS highlighting their experimentation and research on storm research going forward to help your home stay fortified this hurricane season. Thanks so much for joining us, Rachel.
Yeah, glad to be here. Thanks so much, Tim.
All right, we'll be right back after a quick break. Welcome back. Our trivia question from Tuesday night was, which Atlantic hurricane holds the record for the fastest intensification from tropical storm to Category 5? That record is held by Hurricane Milton. That went from a tropical storm to Category 5 in less than 24 hours. And most ridiculously, it went in 1 hour from a Category 325 mile per hour wind to an hour later, a Cat 4 150 mile per hour wind. In 1 hour. Huge rapid intensification. All right, that's tonight's trivia question, and that does it for tonight's episode of Hurricane Hub Live. We'll see you back here at 8 p.m. on Tuesday. Hopefully we'll have some more storms to talk about.